what is covered quite extensively in the doc, and certainly was covered even more extensively in the news, was your decision not that long ago to offer generous severance packages to people who disagreed with your statements about Coinbase as a mission-driven company that provides a refuge of sorts. With that focus, that, and please correct my description if it doesn't fit, but, and in so being a mission-driven company, wanting to avoid sort of political and social conversations within the company that chew up time and energy and resources and attention. Feel free to set the table a little better than I did, but can you describe the situation, the action, and then what is of greatest interest to me is how you thought about making the decision, how you thought about the possible ramifications of making that decision, and prepared yourself for what might happen and then what did happen, just weathering that.
A few years back, we put out this blog post that Coinbase was going to become a mission-focused company, which basically meant we were going to be apolitical, not focus on broader societal issues in the workplace. And so how did that all come to be? I mean, really, I'd say for the couple of years prior to that, there was something that was sort of bubbling up inside the company, which initially was very slow and subtle, and I didn't really pay too much attention to it. But eventually, it culminated in a walkout, a bunch of employees being so upset that they kind of closed their laptops and decided not to come into work in protest. And that was sort of a big moment in the company history because that had never happened before. And so what led up to that? Well, basically there was a lot of, COVID happened. People were at home. They probably had less of a sense of belonging and cohesion as, hey, we're all one company, we're one group of people, we're all trying to do good stuff in the world. So there was a little bit of frustration there. There was probably a lack of cohesion there. And then I'd say it became more popular in society. I've since gone back and read some books on this, like Jonathan Haidt's book about the coddling of the American mind and all these things that kind of started on college campuses. I'd sort of loosely read a few things here and there about this, but I never really took it that seriously. I figured this was just, there's always been activism on college campuses, whatever. We're trying to build something in our company. I didn't pay much attention to it. But what happened was we started to get basically more activism inside the company. Whereas like initially I was always thinking, hey, we're on the same team. We've got competitors, we've got regulators, we're trying to create all this change. We're all on the same team. And internally people started to think, actually, we're not all on the same team. My job is not to help the Coinbase mission. It's to hold, speak truth to power, or to hold this other team, to account or something like that. And so it manifested in strange ways, like at the town hall meetings that we'd have every 2 weeks, we'd have an open mic Q&A. And more of the questions started to be about things not really related to what we were building as a company, but to about broader societal issues. And it almost became this like thing where who can make the exec team squirm the most on stage, and with these very difficult questions. And of course, I didn't have great answers to many of the biggest broader societal issues. We were trying to all focus on building a more economic freedom in the world. So as I was noticing this was happening, this was around the time of the George Floyd riots and everything like that, and the murder there. And so there was a moment, I think, where somebody in one of the all hands kind of came up and said, hey, is Coinbase going to publicly support Black Lives Matter? And I basically deferred to answer the question. I hadn't really read that much about it. I was like, we're going to go look at this. I don't know. To be determined. And that wasn't good enough. And they kind of held the mic and they pressed the issue. And this is where a bunch of people walked out of the company. So I was frankly shocked. I was like, at first I was just so surprised. We all got in a room as an exec team. And I was like, I don't understand. What does Coinbase have to do with police brutality? Like, we're not related to this. But of course, this thing was erupting all over societies, all over the world. And people just felt every company, every person had to make some kind of a stand on this. And so it was a very difficult leadership moment. I remember calling some people into the room, telling me and asking them, what does BLM actually stand for? if we're going to go out there and like say something positive about it. And, they're like, well, it's basically equality for, people. And I was like, great. Okay. If that's what people want to hear, I don't understand it, but let's go out there and say it. And so I basically went out and made a statement supporting BLM, as many companies did at that time. And people came back to work, which was fine. But as the months ticked by, I started to feel increasingly uneasy about it. First of all, I subsequently learned that BLM supported other things, like around defunding the police and all these things, which I was like, all right, we shouldn't be getting involved in those issues. I don't know what our point of view is on that. And I basically realized there was not a clear agreement amongst all the people in the company that some people felt the company should actually be engaging in broader societal issues to try to go help out. And other people felt that we should be focused on our mission, which was a very big and important thing already, increasing economic freedom in the world with crypto. And I was in that latter camp. And I felt like that's already a big enough thing to focus on. We can't be jumping to every issue of the month or the year. We have to try to focus. It might take 10, 20 years for us to make a dent in that problem. That's a really big thing. So I realized the company was divided on this issue, and I was kind of failing as a leader if I didn't come out and make it clear. And so I basically, after a couple months of deliberating, and this is where you were asking about my thought process, I was really torn about this. This is where I sat down to write, and I tried to write a blog post, because when I try to formulate my thinking, I try to write. So I wrote probably 2 or 3 or 4 drafts of this where I just discarded it and tried to write it over again. And I was reading books, talking to people at this time. I eventually settled on this language around mission first. And I remember sharing it with some leaders inside the company and with our board. And there were some people inside the company who were like, do not share this under any circumstances. This will be a terrible thing for the company. And I was like, I know it's going to be controversial, but we have to solve this problem, right? Like, I don't really care so much about a couple bad headlines. I care if are we building an aligned culture that can actually accomplish this mission long term? And some people told me things like, an underrepresented person will never work at this company again. And I was like, really? Is that true? I went and talked to some of our employee resource groups, and they told me, I asked them, what's the most important thing to you to want to work at this company? And they're like, we just want to be respected at work, like learn things, be able to build cool stuff. It was basically what everybody else wanted. And so from talking with people directly, my hunch was that was not going to actually play out, but that was a fear people had. And I think the thing that finally pushed me over the line to do it, because I'm kind of a conflict averse person by nature, I didn't really want to be known for this, but I think the thing that pushed me over the line was I was thinking like, God, like the CEO job is just not that fun, to be honest. Like if I have to come in every day and be put in front of the hot mic and like have to answer all these crazy things that I don't have an answer to, that's not what I signed up for. I want to build cool stuff with technology that changes the world. That's what I'm good at. And so I was basically thinking like, either I have to go, if this is just what the job of being a tech CEO is in modern day, I've got to go because this is not fun for me, or they've got to go. And from talking to a couple of friends and mentors and whatnot, I basically realized they've got to go. And it was strange because it felt like such a vocal, it felt like maybe it was 50% of the company or something, but it wasn't. It was a very vocal, tiny percentage of the company. And so I basically made this exit package available. I said, look, this is the direction we're going in. If you're not okay with that, I totally get it. I didn't make it clear up front. That's my fault. So we're going to give this great severance package, whatever. 5% of the company left. It created a bunch of drama for a few months. A couple journalists wrote hit pieces on us and things like that. But afterwards, it was better. It was like one of the best things I've ever done for the company, to be honest, because now we're fully aligned. We're making faster progress. Everybody who joins the company knows what they're signing up for. And it was an incredibly important leadership moment for me because I was terribly scared to go do it. I didn't want the controversy. I knew people were going to hate it. And so, yeah, hopefully that gives some clarity.
No, it does. And just for clarity, hopefully you don't feel I'm asking this question to make you squirm. That's not the objective. I'm genuinely curious about the thought process surrounding what is inevitably on some level going to be an unpopular decision, right? And I think that is a hallmark of good leadership. Otherwise, I mean, you're just taking votes and consensus and doing what the larger group would do anyway, right? So it seems to me that integral to effective leadership is having the ability to make unpopular decisions when it is in the best interest long term of the company and the mission in this case, right?
Yeah.
So that is why I asked. So thank you for answering.
Totally.